like, let's get more deliberate in blending real world experience. People like Eric Ballister, people like Sully, like bring in those kinds of stories I think are phenomenal, and then blending it deliberately with the clinical experts that we're starting to bring in. I think that's a huge one. The other one.
Welcome to the On the Path podcast, a conversation on navigating life. Join Chris Coker and Colin Creech as they have honest conversations with fellow travelers on the path. In each episode, they explore the physical, mental, and spiritual health aspects of the whole self, striving for personal accountability and a strong community. Gain insights, learn from our mistakes, and hear from guests who have mastered these areas. Step on the path, embracing every challenge and success along the way. See you on the path.
Chris, why are we always laughing? It's because we're talking
Because you're clapping.
And then, no, the clap is to make sure we have a sound bite in our audio so we know when to clip things for the beginning of the podcast. Don't mess with the clap, Chris. But happy 2,000 Instagram followers. I know that might not be a lot for some, but we are super proud of that and thankful to all our subscribers.
Yeah, that's I think it's awesome to see growth. And at the end of the day, like, we don't really have a goal in mind on how many followers do we need on Instagram or how many subscribers do we need on YouTube.
Wasn't the goal.
But it's cool to use it as a metric for, like we're saying something that people want to hear, which it's a good feeling. So thank you to everybody who's been listening and being a part of this so far.
Yeah, and if you got any feedback too, we love it. You can slide in our DMs and ways that we can make the reels better or make the content more engaging. We are not experts, so everything's in-house at the moment, and we love your feedback. Just keep in mind, Chris has 4 kids and a job, and I have a job and a life, so a Lego collection to build. So go easy on the feedback. Make it actually actionable versus this sucks. Yes or no.
The most recent Lego build was pretty good. It was what was it? Captain America shield, I think I saw.
It was. I used my credit card points to get it. Amazon. But Chris, we're doing our second map check.
This is number 2.
Map check 2. And you don't know this is coming, but I'm going to start off with an icebreaker question for you.
Oh, gosh.
Payback,
of course you are.
I won't remember by the map check 3. But if you were suddenly arrested with no explanation, what would your friends and family assume you've done?
What would my friends and family assume that I've done if I've been arrested? Is this like there's no time, right? It could just be like an overnight situation.
Let's just pretend the FBI hits your house, take you out in handcuffs, just read you your rights in front of your family, and then you're gone. What's the assumption going to be?
Oh my gosh, what a tough
Don't
question.
Incriminate yourself as your non-lawyer.
That's part of the issue here.
We'll call
Antoinette.
Antoinette.
Part of the issue. It would be something wild, because I'm not really a troublemaker, but I like to get rowdy. I like to get rambunctious. So maybe it'd be like, I don't know, some sort of social event where I crossed the line and did something. It wouldn't be like Grand Theft Auto or anything like that.
Social event, easy. Not the date to do it. But
I know. Like,
I think it's going to be a Dungeons and Dragons Renaissance fair, and
I got too
you
rowdy.
Started a battle. Yeah, you were throwing spells at somebody else.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Spells,
pulled some prank trying to cast a real life spell, but somebody felt actually threatened. They were like, "This guy said he was gonna do a fireball thing. Is that the same as the bomb?" It'd be one of those situations.
That would actually. That's a fair. I just helped you that answer. So is that your answer?
Yeah, for sure.
Trying to keep you out of jail for real, dog. Your friends and family can thank me. That would be pretty wild, right? What would people assume if it happened? It's pretty good. At this point, I hope it's something harmless. Tax fraud. Those are, it's like it's illegal, but you didn't hurt somebody physically.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully, I don't know.
Exactly.
I've never committed a crime. Neither of us have. So that's why.
Correct.
Yeah.
We said this beforehand, no incriminating ourselves. That's So we got jobs, Colin. That's got to stick to it.
Yeah, but you're doing this for the people,
That's true. That's a good question. All right, so map check number 3, I will remember to
I
do
hope you
an
don't.
icebreaker for you. That one's a pretty good one, and no one will ever give such a fast and eloquent answer as
Oh,
Steve did. Dr. Steve Rosa,
yeah.
like in our I forget now. I guess it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, um, epic answer, and he just like had it as if he'd been thinking about it. And I had shocking to me. I can't think that fast.
I went back and checked the emails to make sure we didn't accidentally leak it, and we didn't. It just literally, he knew what
Yeah,
he would, if it was, a fictional character, who he would dress as every day.
correct.
And it was impressive. It was so fast.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. And
and
something actually
stoic.
dawned on me before we started recording this one. I believe this is number 25, which is a nice like little milestone. So like this episode we're doing right
Gonna
now
fact
is
check you.
episode 25.
Let me check.
Yeah, keep me honest here. I think that it is, which is like kind of serendipity that we're doing a map check for this one because, little quarter century here. It's a
Yeah.
nice little milestone. It's actually hard to believe that that's
It's 26.
this is
Sorry.
26.
And what we
Okay.
we don't count these. Remember? So this is in between 25 and 26.
Oh,
So
so
you
that
still
okay.
got
So
it.
that's what threw me
Give it
off.
to you.
That's what threw me off.
Yeah.
But
Can't
what
give
that
it to you.
means is we have 25 weeks of consistent podcast episodes, being released to all of you, our viewers and our listeners, which is outstanding. So, congratulations, Colin, on 25
Congrats,
episodes,
Steve.
25 weeks of podcast producing under your belt.
Not a small feat. We talked before, like, let's not complain about everything and going on in our life. We want to, we will share honestly what's going on, but at the same time, when we started this over a year ago, when we met in Ithaca, New York,
Yep.
to kind of dream up something that ended up being a podcast. That was not the goal at the beginning.
Yep.
There was a million life changes for both of us, and international move, new role for me, new company, new role for you. I think you had a foot injury at one point
Yep.
from kickboxing.
Yeah, it
So
was Krav. I was doing Krav and I like ruptured the arch of my foot. And it's funny. I was thinking about like this time last year. So before things really started shaping up, like you and I were having conversations around like, how much time do we have realistically? How much are we going to be able to commit? And I gave what I felt was like very, very honest
we
answers.
both did.
And then we're like, okay, cool. So we're going to start committing. And then we started committing.
Yeah.
And then both of us, like yours a little bit sooner than mine, beginning of the year, and then mine was about April, right? Life just like took a crazy turn for both of us, and I became much less available. But I will say, very proud of the both of us for sticking to the commitment, though. Even though it got a little bit more challenging, we've been able to power through and keep it up. And I've learned and grown a lot since we launched this thing.
Yeah, and I think with that, I want to ask you a question about what you've learned. Like, when was one of the things that most memorable thing you've learned from one of our guests? But before we go there, you've said this a few different times, like this is a partnership. And I think when you start keeping count or keeping score, because right before we launched it, I was almost MIA. And then shortly after that, we swapped places, and I was actually excited to be able to cover for you. And then it's gone back and forth. But I think that's where thinking about it as a partnership was the right approach, because it's never going to be 50-50 from a workload standpoint. And
100%.
I appreciate you starting that mindset from the get-go, when I was feeling kind of bad about, hey, dude, I'm dropping the ball on all these things.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I know I've made this analogy with you, but for anybody listening, especially, I bet if you're married and you're hearing this, like you're right. You heard Colin just mention that like it's never 50-50. If you're a married person, you have heard that by someone as a piece of advice in your marriage. And I've made that reference with you, Colin, that it feel like having a business partner feels a lot like having a spouse, where they're like, you're in it together, you're in the thick of it. Like in the beginning, there's a bunch of rosy lenses and it feels great and you're super excited. And then when things get routine, there are days where you're like, this is a drag. And like, but you still have to be committed. And to your point, there's a huge foundation of trust that, as you said, we met up in Ithaca, but we had known each other for a few years leading into that, which I think was a good foundation for us. And then the trust has only gone up over the past few months, where, I know you've got my back. I know, that I've got yours. And although it's never 50-50, nobody's keeping score either. Yeah. Right. And I can tell you that's exactly how my dynamic is with Brittany. Like there's some days where she just brings it. And then there are other days where it's me, whether that's like home operations and getting things done at the house, or even just like having the right energy to like be there for the kids. Like some days I'm just like,
Yeah.
close up my work laptop and I'm just tapped out. And then Brittany's just, super mom. And the other days where I don't know, she's feeling unwell, or
Yeah.
it's just, she just doesn't have that same level of energy. Well, those are the days where I can like pick up and do it too. And it's the same thing with this. I think, it's never 50-50. And at this point, it's like are you the work wife? No, work husband, co-husbands. What's the?
I don't.
I don't know,
I
Colin.
think it's work. I'll take work wife. Screw it. But here's the thing: I don't want problems with your wife. She'd kick my butt, so I don't want beef. I don't want beef, Brittany. I don't want any beef.
This is just an Easter egg. I'm gonna not reference this part of our conversation when this episode airs, so I can see if she listened. Did she?
She knows
hear
I don't
this
want
episode?
that. I don't want that heat. I don't want that heat. Okay, just so if you're listening, I don't want that heat. I respect you. My work wife is my boundary. It ends after work. So after we get off the path, but we don't get off the path. But I think with that too, this is On the Path podcast, a conversation on navigating life. Yeah. We have had some really tough moments just trying to get things going from the beginning, but then also throughout this entire process, 25 different episodes and just different life challenges that happen at the same time. And one of the things that I realized, especially a conversation on navigating life, is we've had some really honest conversations about, hey, where's your head at? How are you feeling? How's it going? And those have actually been the biggest breakthroughs we've had, is being vulnerable, I would almost say, of, hey, I'm struggling right now, or hey, how are you feeling about this endeavor? What do we need to adjust to make this continue to work? And literally after our conversation, was it 2 weeks ago? I felt amazing. I felt like no worries about, continuing to do this project.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right on. And, as you're talking, Colin, it has me thinking like, I mean, I know we knew this, that was the part of like, a conversation on navigating life, but like, if I visualize, like think back to your military days, like when you're doing like land navigation, it's literally looking at a map, and it's never like you just like, yes, you set an azimuth, but you don't just like look up, start walking until you get wherever you're going. It's literally like, I got to stop and I got to check and I got to look, and do I need to shift to the left or shift to the right? Did I go too far? Like there's a lot of,
what do you call that? What do you call that?
Navigating.
Map check?
Yes.
Come on. I set you up. Oh my gosh, dude. Come on.
That's fair. That's a good setup. But what I'm thinking is like, that's exactly how our experience with this show has been up to now, where like, to your point, like we had this vision when we were planning, we had this vision of exactly how it was going to go. And then some roadblocks got in the way, and we had to kind of figure out like, how do we pivot here? How do we pivot there? Then, your work life changes around, my work life changes around a little bit. And like, we've been constantly navigating. And that for me has been like just a really fun thing to see come to life. Now that we're talking about it all the time, I see it in real time, where like I'm watching myself navigate through something, or I'm watching you. So it's been a really like just an enjoyable journey so far. It really is about the journey.
Well, it's a journey on the path. And then shout out to Bill Journey, of course. One of our first guests, our second guest, I believe, second or third. So back to what I was saying just a few minutes ago was a question around what's one of the biggest lessons or insights you've learned through hosting this podcast from one of our guests, like the biggest maybe aha moment for you.
Biggest aha. So let me give you, I guess I'm going to reshape that question a tiny bit. So not something specific from one guest, but something I've learned after speaking to the guests up to this point. The kind of building on what I was saying before about how like we had this plan in place, and then things got in the way, and we had to navigate it. There's a difference between planning and preparedness. I think that we have a plan. You can have a plan, but your plan is inherently based on a sequence of steps happening, right? Like you're saying, like, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. But you can't really account for the variables that are inevitably going to come along the way.
Life variables.
Correct. And that's not the same as preparedness. it's not about like this sequence of steps that the plan is going to take. It's more about like life is going to happen. We're on the path. We don't know what is the next step to the left. Is it going to curve to the right? Like, what does it look like? We don't know. But every conversation we've had on the show so far has better equipped us to prepare for whatever twists and turns life takes, whether it's on the personal front or the professional front, with your family or with my kids, but it doesn't matter. And I think that for me it doesn't matter because of the preparedness that I think that you and I are exercising consistently with the guests. And that's what all of the guests that we've spoken for or spoken with, especially on the clinical side, like all of the different PhDs and therapists we've spoken to.
The three, but we're gonna have more.
That's right. Well, all of them. I mean, it's almost like half, close to half. But still, that piece has been really eye-opening for me. Just like the power of reflection, because when we reflect, it leads to resilience and preparedness, to better equip us for just continuing to stay on the path. Does that count as an answer to your question?
I'm not going to force you to answer my question verbatim today. This is a map check. I'll reflect on how you answered it and then give you feedback offline. But no, I think that's so true. And I think that's the concept of no plan survives first contact, where you absolutely do detailed planning for projects or things in life, but also know it may not go exactly to plan. And that's okay. That's life. There could be a natural disaster. There could be something, globally that happens. And so you can't plan for that, but plan for the best, and then also just know it may change a little bit along the way, but that goes with those daily reflections, daily check-ins with yourself, a daily map check or weekly map check, monthly map check, or maybe 2 so far on the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're bang on. And yeah, that for me is a huge one. I like that you clarified, yes, planning is still important. I don't disagree with that. It's more like planning and preparedness are not the same
when it doesn't go exactly to the plan.
Exactly.
It's not always going to be your fault because of the things that are outside your control.
So let me ask you then, Colin. I got kind of a two-parter for you.
Of course
so
you do.
Obviously I just mentioned that, we've been talking to a lot of academic professionals that are in this space, right? So I guess my first question is did you see that coming? When we started talking about the show and we knew we were going to have guests, is that an angle that you saw coming? Yeah. And without leading the witness too much here, I guess my add to that would be what value has that added for you that we've brought in that particular perspective into the conversation?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the first part's a loaded question because Chris knows the answer. And then the second part is kind of a big thing that Dr. Free actually said. So the first part is, Chris, no, we've talked about this offline. Actually, we absolutely did not plan to have to really be drawn more to these subject matter experts when it comes to life, I'll say. We've had PhDs in clinical psychologists. We've had psychologists, counselors, and so I think what really came out of that, not to bring up the bro science again, was this is a safe space, a trusted individual that they're just giving us so many clear insights and so many more details behind why are these things happening sometimes, or why is this the case, and then how to navigate it or overcome certain challenges in life, especially when it comes to the body and the mind, physical and mental. So I think why were we drawn to that, and we've talked about it, is because these are very trusted resources, very trusted individuals. And that's the whole point of this podcast, is you and I learning along the way, sharing what we're learning, and hopefully they either take away what we've learned or their own unique insights, because what resonates with us, it may not be the same thing with everybody listening. So it's truly, I'm really actually excited to have more subject matter experts on, because it has just actually really helped me grow and change some of the ways I've been approaching things, because I know more about why or how these things come to fruition. For example, gambling addiction. I don't have it, but it was fascinating to hear more about that from Dr. Steve Rose the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yes, we have talked about it. So go ahead.
Part 2 was, when Dr. Britt is my therapist, so much of the last 3 years, it really started around what's my purpose, and really spending a lot of time defining it. with Dr. Free was where it became clear that that was what she was doing, because he just, without being pushed to go there, because we were learning so much about operator syndrome, he was just, you got to spend so much time on that. All
Yeah.
these other things, your body and your mind, like ultimately, like just spend so much time on your purpose and defining it, and then knowing that it's going to change throughout your life
Yeah.
potentially. But it was still, that was an aha. And I gave Dr. Britt some crap in a good way. It was like, oh, I know what you did to me now. I know what your plan was, which was because I still see her. And it was awesome to see, oh, this is not just, this is from a completely different person on a different part of the planet. And they're
Yeah.
saying some of the same things. And then Steve Rose, again, that
Yeah.
was the part 2 answer.
Yeah. No, and I think you're bang on. I like that is the same for me. I guess said different is the kind of the validation, right? Like part of the conversation we were having in the early days was, we had all these thoughts and feelings about things that were going on around us and how we respond to them, or how we see society responding to these different things. We had tons of conversations, and frankly, some of like those reflections were a little bit like difficult to get through, like thinking through like, man, like what is going on? And when
I
we started
Go ahead.
going into the conversations, I think it was more around like, oh, we're not alone in this. And then that validation has come through in spades with some of the professionals that we're bringing on, where, yeah, it's like, this is a big thing for everyone. It's not me, it's not you. And I think you and I are able to speak to it like from real world experience, right? That's part of the angle that we bring, is to kind of talk through, how is this applying to our life? But it's nice to be able to talk to these experts and these, these professionals that have that, that they see it every day. Right.
Yeah, I like the way you said it. It was very eloquent. I replaced my answer for what you just said.
Yeah.
But I think to close this out, Chris, where are we going? What's the vision? Obviously we just talked about it. We want to have more subject matter experts on, especially in the, psychology, sociology standpoint. But
Yep.
what's the vision? What's next? Close it out for us.
Oh man, yeah, I think that's one. So just to kind of reiterate what you just said, like let's get more deliberate in blending real world experience. People like Eric Ballister, people like Sully, like bring in those kinds of stories. I think are phenomenal, and then blending it deliberately with the clinical experts that we're starting to bring in. I think that's a huge one. The other one is obviously we have to be, player coach here, right? Like part of the reason we did this is because we like to coach people. We like to talk and try to help where we can. And I think this is an opportunity for us to also like, take advice from ourselves here. Like we just need to stay on the path. The hurdles are coming. It's not like things are going to slow down. Our lives are going to continue to be busy. So to continue to push out this hopefully very valuable content to all of our listeners and all our viewers, we want to give you more of that. And I guess if I can give a quick tactical one too, Colin, is to just refine it. I think we really have something beautiful here, and that the message that we're sharing, I think, is so valuable for all of our listeners and our viewers. And I just want to continue to refine it. And I think about you'd shared some feedback that a friend of yours gave.
Yeah.
And we had a good conversation on that feedback and how we could apply it to the show. And after applying it, I walked away going, wow, like great changes, like just small little refinements that we're making. And so I'm thinking about that, just continue to refine and continue to increase the value of the conversations that we're having. So that's what I want to do, I think, in the next, few short months.
No, I'm really looking forward to it. Looking forward to closing out the year, reflecting on the year, but also where we're going. It's a path, and this is a map check 2 and more to come. But I think just want to thank everybody listening. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for our 2,000 followers. Big deal for us, even though that wasn't the goal. And yeah, we're gonna do more of this. We're gonna keep it going.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, Colin, I'll see you on the path.
I'll see you on the path.